The invitation arrived on embossed cardstock, the kind that screamed expensive and important. Gold lettering announced my father's retirement celebration after 35 years as a senior partner at Morrison & Walsh, one of Philadelphia's most prestigious law firms. I was reading the details when I noticed the asterisk at the bottom. Below, in smaller print, "This is a professional celebration for distinguished guests. Please refrain from bringing unemployed or casually employed relatives. We want to maintain an atmosphere of achievement." I stared at those words for a full minute. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Victoria. "Got the invitation? The unemployment comment is about you, obviously. Dad doesn't want you embarrassing him in front of his law firm partners. Just stay home." Seriously. Another text. "Half these people are judges and corporate attorneys. They don't need to meet Dad's 28-year-old unemployed son who does consulting nothing. Please just don't come." I set the invitation on my desk and returned to the spreadsheet on my screen. A financial model for my latest acquisition, a struggling manufacturing company in Erie that I was about to purchase for $47 million. My name is Julian Anderson. I'm 28 years old. And according to my family, I've been unemployed for 6 years. The truth is more complicated. I graduated from Penn State at 22 with a degree in industrial engineering. My family expected me to follow my father and sister into law, or at least pursue something they understood: investment banking, consulting at a prestigious firm, corporate management. Instead, I told them I wanted to start my own business. Dad had laughed. Doing what exactly? Buying struggling manufacturing companies and turning them around. With what money? Do you have any idea how much capital that requires? I'll start small. Bootstrap it. Victoria, already 2 years into her position at Dad's law firm, had rolled her eyes. "Julian, be realistic. You can't just decide to buy companies. That's not how the world works." "I know how it works. I've been studying." "Studying," Dad interrupted. "Everyone studies. Execution is what matters. And you have no experience, no capital, no network. This is a fantasy." But I'd done it anyway. I started with $50,000 saved from internships and a college fund my grandmother left me. I found a tiny machine shop in Reading, 12 employees, outdated equipment, on the verge of bankruptcy. The owner was desperate. I bought it for $35,000, spent the rest modernizing their most critical equipment, and personally worked the floor for 6 months learning every aspect of the operation. Within a year, I'd tripled their revenue by identifying inefficiencies the previous owner had missed for decades. I sold that company 18 months later for $280,000. I never told my family. They knew I'd started something with a manufacturing company, but when I didn't show up to family dinners in a suit, when I had grease under my fingernails, when I talked about machine tolerances and production efficiency instead of quarterly earnings, they assumed I'd failed. "Still doing that factory thing?" Dad would ask dismissively. "Working on it," I'd reply. "When are you going to get a real job?" "This is a real job. Julian, you're not making money playing around with machine shops. Victoria is on partner track. She's making $240,000 a year. You're what? Breaking even." I'd sold my second company for $1.2 million. But I didn't correct him. Because something fascinating happened when they thought I was failing. They revealed exactly who they were. Victoria stopped inviting me to professional events. "It's just awkward when people ask what you do," she explained. "I can't keep saying you're between opportunities." Mom started introducing me at social functions as our son who's still figuring things out. The pity in her voice was thick enough to cut. Dad simply stopped mentioning me to his colleagues entirely. I became the family secret, the disappointing son who'd rejected their path and predictably failed at his own. But I kept buying companies, kept learning, kept growing. By 25, I owned 4 manufacturing companies generating $8.3 million in annual revenue. By 27, I'd expanded to 9 companies across Pennsylvania and Ohio, with combined revenues exceeding $43 million. I employed 387 people. I'd become known in industrial circles as a turnaround specialist, the guy who could take a failing manufacturer and make it profitable within 18 months. Last year, the Pennsylvania Manufacturing Association named me Emerging Industrialist of the Year. The governor sent a congratulatory letter. Senator Patricia Morrison, no relation to Dad's law firm, personally presented me with the Entrepreneur of the Year award at the state capitol. My family didn't know about any of it. They still thought I was playing around with factories and barely scraping by. Why didn't I tell them? For the same reason I documented everything. I wanted to see how far they'd go. How much they'd reveal about their values when they thought I had nothing. And they'd revealed plenty. Last Christmas, Victoria's fiancé, a corporate attorney, asked what I did. Before I could answer, Victoria jumped in. Julian's trying to make manufacturing work. Very blue collar. Not really our family's thing, but we support his journey. The condescension was breathtaking. At Dad's birthday dinner in March, one of his law partners asked about his children. Dad beamed, talking about Victoria, her cases, her partnership track, her engagement to a brilliant attorney. When asked about me, his smile faded. Julian's exploring some business ventures. Nothing concrete yet. We're hopeful he'll find his footing eventually. I was sitting right there. I'd closed a $12 million acquisition that week. But I said nothing. Just smiled and changed the subject. As I was collecting data. Every dismissive comment, every pitying look, every time they introduced me as their unemployed son, I cataloged it all. And now this invitation. This explicit instruction not to bring unemployed or casually employed relatives to Dad's retirement party. My assistant Jennifer knocked and entered my office. We were in my headquarters building, a renovated factory in Bethlehem that housed my management operations. Julian, Senator Morrison's office called. She wants to confirm your attendance at the manufacturing leadership dinner next month. Tell them yes. I'll be there. Also, the Erie deal final contracts are ready for review. Legal says we can close by next Friday. Perfect. I paused. Jennifer, do you remember that invitation to my father's retirement party? The one with the charming note about unemployed relatives? Hard to forget. What if I attended? She raised an eyebrow. After they explicitly uninvited you? They didn't uninvite me. They just strongly suggested I not embarrass them with my unemployment. But you're not unemployed. You employ nearly 400 people. They don't know that. Understanding dawned on her face. Oh no. Julian, what are you planning? I'm planning to attend my father's retirement party. Just attend? That's all. Well, I might bring a guest. Who? I haven't decided yet. Maybe someone distinguished. Someone who understands achievement. She studied me carefully. You're going to let them discover the truth in front of everyone, aren't you? I'm not going to do anything. I'm simply going to exist. If the truth emerges, that's not my responsibility. You've been waiting 6 years for this. I've been waiting 6 years to see who they'd be when they thought I had nothing. Now I know. What happens next is just natural consequences. Jennifer smiled slowly. You know, Senator Morrison asks about you constantly. She thinks you're the future of Pennsylvania manufacturing. Does she? She told me last week that you're exactly the kind of entrepreneur this state needs. Young, innovative, committed to American manufacturing. She said you're a model for economic revitalization. That's very kind of her. Julian, what if you asked the senator to attend your father's retirement party as your guest? I looked at her. Why would I do that? Because your father's invitation specified distinguished guests only. And Senator Patricia Morrison is literally the most distinguished guest possible. She's on the State Economic Development Committee. She's being mentioned for governor. She just gave you Entrepreneur of the Year. It would be awkward. My family doesn't know about the award. Exactly. Jennifer's smile was wicked. Imagine introducing the senator as your guest. Imagine her talking about what you've accomplished. Imagine your father realizing that his unemployed son is actually being courted by state leadership. That seems cruel. Does it? More cruel than uninviting your son from your retirement party because you're embarrassed by his perceived unemployment. He had a point. Think about it, Jennifer said. You have until Saturday. Over the next 3 days I did think about it. I thought about every dismissive comment, every pitying look, every time I'd been introduced as the disappointing son. I thought about that invitation, no unemployed or casually employed relatives, and the message it sent. Then I called Senator Morrison's office. Senator, this is Julian Anderson. I have an unusual request. 20 minutes later it was arranged. Senator Morrison would attend Dad's retirement party as my guest. She was actually enthusiastic about it. "Your father is retiring from Morrison and Walsh?" she'd asked. "I know several partners there. This will be perfect. I've been wanting to talk to the legal community about supporting manufacturing initiatives. Plus, I'm delighted to show support for our Entrepreneur of the Year." I didn't tell my family. I simply RSVP'd that I would attend with one guest. Victoria texted immediately, "You're actually coming? Julian, we talked about this. Please don't make this weird." I replied, "I'll be there. With a distinguished guest as requested." "Who? Please tell me you're not bringing some random friend from the factory. Someone appropriate for the occasion." "Julian, this is Dad's big night. These are important people. Just try to blend in, okay? Don't talk about factories or machinery or whatever. Just smile and be normal." "Understood." Saturday evening arrived clear and cold. The party was at the Union League, all old money elegance and Philadelphia prestige. I wore my best suit, custom-tailored, expensive, bought after I'd crossed my first $10 million in revenue but never worn in front of my family. I picked up Senator Morrison from her office. She was in her late 50s, elegant and sharp, with a reputation for supporting Pennsylvania business with fierce dedication. "Julian, I have to admit I'm curious about tonight. You've never mentioned your family knowing about your work." "They don't." "How is that possible? You're one of the most successful young manufacturers in the state." "I never told them. They assumed I was failing and I never corrected them." She was quiet for a moment. "That must have been difficult." "It was educational." "And tonight? They're going to find out. Only if it comes up naturally in conversation." She smiled. "Julian, I'm a United States Senator attending your father's retirement party. I'm going to be asked how I know you. What should I say?" "The truth. The truth that you're my Entrepreneur of the Year? That you employ nearly 400 people? That you're revolutionizing small-scale manufacturing in Pennsylvania. If it comes up. It's going to come up." We arrived at the Union League at 6:45. The party started at 7 o'clock, but I wanted to make an entrance. The ballroom was already filling with guests. Lawyers in expensive suits, judges, corporate executives. Dad was near the entrance, greeting people with Mom beside him. Victoria was networking aggressively, her attorney fiancé Marcus at her side. I watched them for a moment before entering. This was their world, polished, prestigious, all surface and status. Then I walked in with Senator Morrison. The first person to notice was the event coordinator, who clearly recognized the senator. His eyes widened and he immediately approached. "Senator Morrison, this is an unexpected honor. We had no idea you'd be attending." The senator smiled graciously. "I'm here as Julian's guest. He invited me and I couldn't refuse. Julian is one of Pennsylvania's most promising young leaders." The coordinator looked at me blankly. "Julian. Julian Anderson. The guest of honor's son." Recognition and confusion fought on his face. "Mr. Anderson's son? I didn't realize you knew each other." "Julian received my Entrepreneur of the Year award last month," the senator said warmly. "We've worked together on several manufacturing initiatives. He's doing remarkable work." The coordinator's confusion deepened, but he led us into the ballroom. Heads turned as we entered. Senator Morrison was recognizable and people were clearly trying to figure out who she was with and why. Dad saw us from across the room. I watched his face cycle through emotions. Recognition of me, confusion about my suit, shock at seeing the senator, complete bafflement about us being together. He excused himself from his conversation and walked over quickly. "Julian." His voice was strained. "You came. Of course. It's your retirement party. And you brought." He stared at Senator Morrison. "Senator Patricia Morrison," I said. "Senator, this is my father, David Anderson." Dad's professional instincts kicked in. He extended his hand. "Senator Morrison, I had no idea you knew my son. David, congratulations on your retirement. Julian has told me wonderful things about your career." She shook his hand warmly. "And yes, Julian and I have worked together quite extensively. He's one of my favorite success stories." "Success stories?" Dad's voice cracked slightly. "Didn't he tell you? Last month I presented him with Pennsylvania's Entrepreneur of the Year award at the state capitol." His work in manufacturing revitalization is exactly the kind of economic development our state needs. Dad looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Entrepreneur of the Year? It was a small ceremony, I said mildly. Small. The senator laughed. The governor attended, David. It was quite a significant honor. Mom had materialized beside Dad, her face a mask of confusion. I'm sorry, I think there's been some mistake. Julian he isn't. Employed? The senator finished gently. Oh, I understand. Julian mentioned his family thinks he's unemployed. I found that quite amusing, given that he's one of the largest employers in the Pennsylvania manufacturing sector. The blood drained from Mom's face. Victoria appeared, Marcus in tow. She took one look at the senator and her eyes went wide. Senator Morrison? What are you doing here? I'm Victoria Anderson, my sister said, extending her hand with her professional smile. I'm a corporate attorney at Morrison & Walsh. It's an honor to meet you. Ah yes, Julian's sister. He's mentioned you. The senator's tone was polite but cool. I'm here as Julian's guest. He's been too modest about his accomplishments, so I thought I'd attend and set the record straight. Accomplishments? Victoria's smile was strained. Julian, what is she talking about? Before I could answer, one of Dad's senior partners approached. Thomas Morrison, a named partner at the firm. Patricia. I didn't know you'd be here. Senator Morrison brightened. Tom. Yes, I'm here supporting Julian Anderson. You know him, I assume? David's son. Thomas Morrison looked at me, clearly not knowing me at all. Of course. David's son. How do you two know each other? Julian is my most recent Entrepreneur of the Year, the senator said. He's revolutionizing small-scale manufacturing in Pennsylvania. 9 companies, nearly 400 employees, over $40 million in annual revenue. Tom, you should talk to him about his work. It's exactly the kind of economic development story Pennsylvania needs. Thomas Morrison's eyebrows shot up. 9 companies. David, you never mentioned your son was running a manufacturing empire. Dad's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Oh, didn't you know? The senator's voice held a note of surprise that sounded genuine but probably wasn't. Julian's been quite successful. The Pennsylvania Manufacturing Association honored him last year as Emerging Industrialist of the Year. This year, I had the pleasure of giving him the state's highest entrepreneurial honor. More people were gathering now, drawn by the presence of a U.S. senator. Several of Dad's law partners, 2 judges, a handful of corporate executives. All listening. Victoria found her voice. Julian, is this some kind of joke? No joke, I said quietly. I've been running my companies for 6 years. You just never asked about them. You said you were working with factories. I am. I own them. Marcus, Victoria's fiancé, stepped forward. Wait. Anderson Manufacturing Group. That's you. I nodded. Jesus Christ. We consulted on one of your acquisitions last year. The Erie deal. I had no idea. He looked at Victoria. Your brother owns MG? What's MG? Victoria asked desperately. One of the fastest-growing manufacturing consolidators in the region, Marcus said, his voice faint. They're buying up struggling manufacturers and turning them around. It's brilliant work. The legal community has been watching them for 2 years. The senator nodded approvingly. Julian has a particular genius for identifying value others miss. He sees potential in companies that others have written off. Very similar to how some families write off their own children, actually. The dig was subtle but unmistakable. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Dad finally found his voice. Julian, why didn't you tell us? I tried to, Dad. 3 years ago I mentioned I'd bought my 3rd company. You said I was playing around with factories. 2 years ago, I told you I'd been honored by the Manufacturing Association. You said, that's nice, when are you getting a real job? I don't remember that. I do. I remember every conversation where you dismissed what I was building. Every time you introduced me as your unemployed son. Every pitying look when someone asked what I did. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God. Victoria was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. The invitation. The note about unemployed relatives. That was about you. Yes. But you're not unemployed. You're wildly successful. Yes. And you just Let us believe you were failing? You believed that on your own, Victoria. I just stopped correcting you. One of the judges, a woman I recognized from news coverage, spoke up. Young man, did I hear correctly that you employ nearly 400 people? 387 as of last Friday, I confirmed. In manufacturing? In Pennsylvania. Yes, ma'am. All Pennsylvania-based companies. I focus on acquiring struggling manufacturers and turning them around while keeping jobs in the state. That's extraordinary. Most young people your age are chasing tech startups and Wall Street jobs. You're actually building things, employing people, strengthening the industrial base. Thank you, Your Honor. Senator Morrison smiled. See, this is why I'm so passionate about supporting Julian's work. He represents everything our economic development strategy is trying to encourage. Young, American-focused, committed to manufacturing excellence. Thomas Morrison turned to Dad. David, I have to say I'm surprised you never mentioned this. We've been discussing economic development initiatives for months. Your son is exactly the kind of entrepreneur we should be connecting with our corporate clients. Dad looked like he might be sick. Another partner spoke up. How did we not know about this? Anderson Manufacturing Group has been making waves. We should have AMG as a client. You probably should, I said mildly. Though my current legal team has been quite effective. Marcus spoke carefully. Julian, when we consulted on your Erie acquisition, the partner running that deal talked about the client like they were some kind of genius. The way they'd structured the financing, the due diligence, the integration plan, he said it was the most sophisticated manufacturing acquisition he'd seen from a small player. That was a complex deal, I acknowledged. That was you. You structured all of that. I had good advisors. At 27 years old. 26, actually. The Erie deal closed last year. The crowd around us had grown. Everyone wanted to hear about the mysterious successful son who'd been hiding in plain sight. Senator Morrison was in her element, talking about my work with genuine enthusiasm. What impresses me most about Julian is his commitment to the communities where he operates. He doesn't just buy companies and strip them for parts. He invests in them. Modernizes equipment. Trains workers. Last year his company spent $2.3 million on workforce development programs. A corporate executive I didn't recognize asked, "What's your exit strategy? Are you building to sell to a larger consolidator?" No. I'm building to last. Manufacturing matters. These companies employ real people in real communities. I'm not interested in flipping them for profit. I'm interested in proving that American manufacturing can be competitive, profitable, and sustainable. That's refreshing, the executive said. Most young entrepreneurs are just looking for a quick acquisition. I'm not most young entrepreneurs. Victoria finally pulled me aside, away from the growing crowd. Her face was pale. Julian, I don't understand. How is any of this possible? You're 28 years old. How do you own 9 companies? I started at 22. I've been building for 6 years. With what money? I started with $50,000 from Grandma's college fund. I bought my first company for $35,000. Sold it 18 months later for $280,000. Reinvested everything. Bought the next company. Then the next. Each sale funded the next acquisition. After the third exit, I had enough capital to start keeping companies instead of just flipping them. But we never knew. We never saw any money, any success, any. You never asked to see it, Victoria. You just assumed I was failing. Because you looked like you were failing. You wore jeans to family dinners. You had grease under your fingernails. You talked about machines and factories. Instead of quarterly reports and billable hours? She flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? You measured success by your standards. Suits and corporate jobs in prestigious firms. When I didn't fit that model, you assumed I was unsuccessful. You never considered that I might be building something real. Marcus approached carefully. Julian, I owe you an apology. Victoria told me you were struggling and I accepted it. I should have asked more questions. Why would you? You trusted what my family told you. They were wrong. Yes, they were. Dad appeared, looking shaken. Julian, can we talk? Privately. We can talk here. Please. I need to understand. What's to understand, Dad? He thought I was unemployed. You were embarrassed enough to put it in the invitation to your own retirement party. No unemployed or casually employed relatives. That was about me. I didn't write that. The event coordinator. You approved it. You read that invitation and thought, yes, that's appropriate. Better keep Julian away from my important colleagues. His face crumpled. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if you came, people would ask what you did and you'd be humiliated by having to explain. Explain what? That I own 9 manufacturing companies? That I employ nearly 400 people? That a United States senator thinks I'm the future of Pennsylvania manufacturing? Yes, Dad, that would have been humiliating. Mom had tears running down her face. Julian, we didn't know. How could we know? You could have asked. Any time in the last 6 years, you could have asked one real question about my work. You could have visited one of my facilities. You could have shown interest instead of dismissal. But you didn't because you'd already decided I was a disappointment. Victoria's voice was small. We're so sorry. Are you sorry for dismissing me? Or sorry that you were wrong about me? She had no answer. The party continued around us, but our small family drama had become the center of attention. Senator Morrison was holding court near the bar, talking about manufacturing policy with several of Dad's partners. Periodically she'd gesture toward me and I'd catch phrases like remarkable young man, and exactly the kind of leadership we need. Thomas Morrison approached our family circle. David, I hope you don't mind, but I've been talking with the senator about Julian's work. We'd very much like to have Anderson Manufacturing Group as a client. Would you be open to a meeting next week, Julian? Before I could answer, Dad spoke. Julian already has legal representation. I'm aware. But given the family connection, I thought. No, I said firmly. My current legal team has served me well. I see no reason to change. But we're one of the premier corporate firms in the state. Your father's firm. Yes, my father's firm. The firm where my father never mentioned me because he was embarrassed by my unemployment. I think I'll stick with the lawyers who valued my work before they knew my last name. Thomas looked uncomfortable. Of course. I understand. After he left, Dad turned to me with desperate eyes. Julian, please. We made a mistake. Let us make it right. How? By giving me what I never needed. Your approval now that I've proven successful by your standards. Dad, I didn't build my companies for you. I built them because I love this work. Because I believe in American manufacturing. Because I wanted to prove that you could succeed without following the traditional path. And you did prove that. You proved it spectacularly. But you never saw it. You were so convinced your path was the only path that you couldn't see success when it was right in front of you. Victoria spoke quietly. What do you want from us, Julian? Tell us how to fix this. I looked at my sister, brilliant, accomplished, and so certain that her version of success was the only version that mattered. I want you to understand that you didn't fail to notice my success. You actively dismissed it. Every time I tried to share something about my work, you changed the subject or made a joke or pitted me. You didn't just overlook my achievements. You invalidated them because they didn't match your expectations. We'll do better, Mom said desperately. We'll learn about your companies, we'll visit your facilities, will you? Or will you just feel embarrassed that your unemployed son turned out to be successful, and now you have to recalibrate your narrative? The question hung in the air. Senator Morrison appeared at my elbow. Julian, I hate to interrupt, but Judge Chen would like to meet you. She's very interested in your workforce development programs. Of course, Senator. I turned to my family. Excuse me. I have networking to do. With distinguished guests. I walked away, leaving them standing in their broken assumptions. The rest of the evening was surreal. I spent 2 hours talking with judges, attorneys, and executives, all of whom were fascinated by my work and impressed by my success. Several offered opportunities, partnerships, investments, advisory roles. My family watched from a distance, clearly unsure how to approach me. Around 9 p.m., Dad's retirement toast began. Thomas Morrison spoke about Dad's career, his contributions to the firm, his dedication to his work. Then he added something unscripted. David has always been a man who valued success and achievement. Tonight we've discovered that those values run in his family, perhaps in unexpected ways. His son Julian is proof that success comes in many forms. While David was building legal precedents, Julian was building companies. While David was winning cases, Julian was winning awards. Different paths but the same excellence. It was generous. More generous than Dad deserved. But it also highlighted the irony. Dad's retirement party had become, in part, about his son's unexpected success. After the toast, Victoria found me again. Julian, can we please talk? Really talk. About what? About everything. About how we failed you. About how we can move forward. I studied her face. She looked genuinely stricken, genuinely sorry. Victoria, I don't know if we can move forward. Not immediately. You spent 6 years treating me like a failure. That doesn't erase with one conversation. I know. But we have to start somewhere. Then start by understanding something. I didn't hide my success to punish you. I built it quietly because I wanted to see who you'd be when you thought I had nothing. And you showed me. You showed me that your respect was conditional. Your pride was transactional. You loved the idea of me more than you loved the reality of me. Tears were running down her face now. That's not true. We love you. Do you? Or do you love successful me? Because for 6 years, you didn't love struggling me very much. That's not, we always loved you, You just what? Wished I was different? Wished I'd followed your path? Wished I was less embarrassing? She couldn't answer. Marcus spoke carefully. Julian, for what it's worth, I think what you've built is incredible. Not just the companies but the way you've built them. With integrity and commitment. That takes character. Thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I let Victoria's narrative shape my perception of you, and that was lazy thinking on my part. I nodded slowly. I appreciate that. Senator Morrison appeared one more time before leaving. Julian, thank you for inviting me tonight. It was quite illuminating. Thank you for coming, Senator. I have to say, watching your family discover who you really are, that was something. How do you feel? Tired. She smiled sympathetically. I imagine so. But Julian, remember this. You built something remarkable with no support from them. That's not a burden, that's proof of your strength. Whether they come around or not, you've already succeeded. I appreciate that. And one more thing. Next month's manufacturing leadership dinner. I'd like you to speak. Just 10 minutes about your journey, your philosophy, your work. These are the state's top industrial leaders. They should hear from you. I'd be honored. After she left, I found my parents one more time. They were sitting at a table in the corner, looking exhausted and devastated. Julian, Dad started as I approached. I've been thinking about what you said. About how we never asked. And you're right. We never did. We just assumed and we were wrong. Yes, you were. Can I ask now? Can I learn about what you've built? I considered this carefully. You can ask. But Dad, you need to understand something. My companies aren't just impressive by accident. I built them the way I did. Quietly, without fanfare, without seeking approval, because I wanted to prove something to myself. I wanted to prove I could succeed on my own terms, without the Anderson name, without connections, without following the expected path. And you did. Yes, I did. And that success is mine. It's not ours. It's not the family's achievement. It's mine. I built it alone, and that's important to me. Mom spoke softly. We understand. Or we're trying to understand. Are you? Because right now I think you're just embarrassed. Embarrassed that you uninvited your unemployed son who turned out to be more successful than you realized. Embarrassed that a United States senator knows more about your son's career than you do. Embarrassed that your narrative was completely wrong. That's harsh, Dad said. Is it? Harsher than putting no unemployed relatives on an invitation to your own son. He flinched. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo. Me at the state capitol with Senator Morrison, holding the Entrepreneur of the Year award. The governor was in the background, applauding. This happened 5 weeks ago, I said. You never asked why I went to Harrisburg. You never asked why I was wearing a suit that day. You never wondered if something important was happening in my life. Mom stared at the photo, fresh tears falling. You won Entrepreneur of the Year and we didn't even know. Because you didn't ask. Because you weren't interested in anything that didn't fit your narrative of Julian the disappointment. What do we do now? Dad asked helplessly. You sit with this. You think about what it means that you valued perception over reality. You think about what it means that you were embarrassed by your son based on assumptions rather than facts. And you decide if you want to change. We do want to change, Mom said desperately. Then prove it. Not tonight, not with grand gestures. Prove it over time. Prove that you can value me when I'm not performing success for you. Prove that your love isn't conditional on achievement. I left them there and walked out of the Union League into the cold Philadelphia night. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts from colleagues who'd heard about the party, emails from business contacts, even a message from Senator Morrison's chief of staff about scheduling the speaking engagement. But nothing from my family for 3 hours. Then finally a text from Victoria. I've been reading about your companies. All the articles, the awards, the coverage. Julian, what you've built is extraordinary. And I'm so sorry I never saw it. I didn't reply. Another text, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please don't give up on us completely. We want to learn. We want to do better. I typed, actions matter more than words. Show me. We will. I promise. The next morning I woke to an email from Dad. Julian, I didn't sleep last night. I kept thinking about everything you said, everything we missed. You're right. We actively dismissed your success because it didn't match our expectations. We measured you by our standards instead of recognizing that you were building something remarkable on your own terms. I can't change the past 6 years. I can't undo the invitation that hurt you. I can't erase all the dismissive comments and pitying looks. But I can change going forward. I can learn about your work. I can try to understand what you've built. I can work to earn back your trust. If you're willing to let me try. That. I read it twice, then set my phone down. 3 days later, Dad showed up at my headquarters in Bethlehem unannounced. Jennifer buzzed me from the front desk. Julian, your father is here. He doesn't have an appointment. Send him up. Dad walked into my office and stopped, looking around at the space. The industrial aesthetic, the photos of my facilities, the awards I'd never displayed at family gatherings. This is impressive, he said quietly. Thank you. Can you show me around? Explain what you do here. I studied him carefully. He looked older than he had at the party, more uncertain. Why? I asked. Because I want to understand. Because I should have asked years ago. Because you're my son and I don't actually know what you do all day. So I showed him. The office, the operations center, the financial planning room. I explained how I identified acquisition targets, how I evaluated their potential, how I structured deals. I showed him the monitoring systems we used to track performance across all 9 facilities. He asked questions, good questions, thoughtful questions. Questions that showed he was actually trying to understand. After 2 hours we sat in my office over coffee. Julian, this is remarkable. The systems you've built, the way you've structured everything. This is sophisticated work. I know. Why didn't you tell us? I tried to, Dad. You didn't want to hear it. He nodded slowly. I've spent my career being certain I knew how success worked. Law school, prestigious firm, making partner. That was the path. When you chose differently, I thought you were making a mistake. I wasn't making a mistake. I was making a choice. I see that now. But Julian, I need you to understand something. It wasn't about you. It was about me. About my fear that if your path worked, it meant my certainty about the right path was wrong. That stopped me. What do you mean? I mean, I was threatened by your success. If you could build something remarkable without following my path, it meant my path wasn't the only way. It meant all my certainty was just preference, not truth. So you dismissed me to protect your worldview? Yes. And that's inexcusable. We sat in silence for a moment. Can I ask you something? Dad said finally. The invitation. The note about unemployed relatives. Did you know about it before the party? Yes. Victoria texted me to make sure I understood I wasn't welcome. And you came anyway. I came with a United States senator who'd given me Entrepreneur of the Year. He smiled sadly. That was quite a statement. It was the truth. You wanted distinguished guests only. Senator Morrison is literally the most distinguished guest possible. Fair point. He paused. Are you glad it happened the way it did? The public discovery. I thought about this carefully. I'm not glad you dismissed me for 6 years. I'm not glad I had to watch my family value Victoria's achievements while devaluing mine. But I am glad the truth came out in a way that couldn't be minimized or spun. You couldn't claim it was a small success or a lucky break. The senator made sure everyone understood exactly what I'd built. She was quite effective. She was honest. That's different. Dad finished his coffee and stood. Thank you for showing me around. I know I don't deserve your time, but I appreciate it anyway. Dad, I don't hate you. I'm just tired of being underestimated. You won't be anymore. Not by me. Over the following months, my family made efforts. Dad visited my facilities, asked questions, learned about manufacturing. Mom attended a workforce development graduation ceremony at one of my companies. Victoria connected me with corporate clients who needed the kind of operational restructuring I specialized in. They were trying. But the relationship was different now. There was a distance, a carefulness. They'd seen who they were when they thought I had nothing, and I'd seen it too. That knowledge couldn't be erased. 6 months after Dad's retirement party, I was having dinner with Victoria and Marcus. She'd been reading everything she could find about my work, trying to understand what she'd missed. Julian, can I ask you something? Why manufacturing? Of all the things you could have done, why buy factories? Because manufacturing matters. It's tangible. It creates real value. And everyone had written it off as dead, which meant there was opportunity. I could buy struggling companies cheaply, fix what was broken, and prove that American manufacturing could still be competitive. And you were right. So far. What's next? More acquisitions. Some. But I'm also looking at vertical integration. If I own companies at different points in the supply chain, I can reduce costs and improve quality. Marcus leaned forward. That's brilliant. Most people wouldn't think at that scale. Most people were trained to think inside existing structures. I didn't have that training, so I thought differently. Victoria smiled. You mean you didn't go to law school? Exactly. Do you resent us? She asked suddenly. For pushing you toward law, for dismissing you when you chose differently? I did resent you. For a long time. But now I'm just grateful in a strange way. If you'd supported me from the beginning, I might have sought your approval instead of building something independently. Your dismissal forced me to prove myself to myself, not to you. That's a generous way to frame it. It's honest. You gave me a gift, you just didn't mean to. She was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about the invitation. The note about unemployed relatives. Every time I remember it, I feel sick. Don't. It taught me who you were when you thought I had nothing. That's valuable information. And now? Who are we now? You're trying. That's something. But Victoria, you need to understand, I don't need you to be proud of me now. I needed you to respect me then. The fact that you're proud now that you know I'm successful, that's about you, not me. She nodded, tears in her eyes. You're right. And I'm sorry. I know. A year after the retirement party, Senator Morrison invited me to speak at the State Economic Development Summit. The governor was there along with business leaders from across Pennsylvania. My family attended, all of them. They sat in the audience as I spoke about building sustainable manufacturing, about the importance of investing in people and communities, about proving that American industry could compete globally. After my speech, the governor approached me personally. Mr. Anderson, I've been following your work. We'd like to discuss some policy initiatives around manufacturing revitalization. Would you be interested in serving on an advisory committee? I'd be honored, Governor. I saw my father watching from across the room, pride and regret both visible on his face. After the event, we had dinner. Me, my parents, Victoria and Marcus. It was easier now, more comfortable. They asked real questions. They listened to my answers. They treated my work with the respect it deserved. But I never forgot who they'd been when they thought I had nothing. That night as I drove home alone, I thought about the journey. 6 years of being dismissed. 6 years of building in silence. 6 years of watching my family reveal who they really were. And then one night, one retirement party, when everything changed. People asked if I'd planned it. If I'd orchestrated the public revelation. The truth was simpler. I'd just lived my life. Built my companies. Won my awards. The retirement party was going to happen regardless. The invitation excluding unemployed relatives was going to be sent regardless. Senator Morrison and I were already connected through my work. The collision was inevitable. I hadn't engineered their embarrassment. I'd simply stopped protecting them from reality. And reality, as I'd learned in 6 years of manufacturing, has a way of making itself known. Sometimes quietly through steady work and accumulated success. Sometimes dramatically when a United States senator walks into your father's retirement party and tells everyone that his unemployed son is actually Entrepreneur of the Year. The truth doesn't need revenge. It just needs time. And I'd given it 6 years. That was enough.